Well, good morning, everyone. And every day we rise, it's a great day to be alive. And I'm Slim Overton, and welcome to Postman's Coffee Talks morning show. And what a great Monday morning! And Colonel, we won't talk about our boys this morning.
No,
We-
no,
We'll just
there.
leave that alone
Yes, leave it alone.
until the next time. But
Yes.
anyway, I can say two of my teams won. Norcom won. I see Norcom won, and Virginia Union won. So. I don't know about Hampton and Norfolk State, Colonel.
I
Uh,
have no idea, no clue.
yeah, I don't know what ODU did, Miss Almond. I don't know.
ODU
But,
one, ODU one.
oh, okay, all right. We just wanted to
Oh,
do those shout outs to those victors from yesterday. But anyway, we have, well, before I turn it over to the Colonel, who is the host moderator on our Monday morning shows, I want to say if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, make sure you like, subscribe, and comment, if you will, and share with other people. So we have some very important information to throw your way this morning. So please comment, if you will, and if you have any questions, put them out there and we'll try to pass them on. Colonel, go ahead. And while I let Leah in, I think she's coming in.
Okay. Well, it's a good morning. Good morning. How you doing this morning, Yvonne?
I'm doing pretty good. It's an early morning for me. This is a holiday, so usually I sleep in on a holiday,
I
but here I
forgot all
am.
about the holiday. Yeah.
Yes, it is a great morning. So this is one of my favorite subjects is wealth, especially Black wealth. And one of the discussions that we never have, especially amongst the Black populations, in my opinion, is what we call intergenerational wealth. And so I'll just open it up when we talk about Black wealth. And I'll look at some statistics that I had pulled up. And like in 2022, the median wealth for a Black household was only $44,800, while a white family had $285,000.
Colonel,
The
before you get started, can you introduce our guest? We didn't introduce our guest.
yes. Yeah, my bad,
Introduce
my bad.
myself.
So, yes. So before I go in there, I'll let you, since I jumped on there, I'll let you introduce yourself and tell us about your background.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Yvonne Allmond. I'm an executive vice president at TowneBank. I am currently the community financial engagement officer for TowneBank for more than 30 years throughout various banks, including SunTrust, Crestar, and TowneBank. I was a lender and a private banker, and a private banker just meant that you handle all of the basic financial needs of your customers, who are typically professionals like doctors, attorneys, accountants, engineers, all of those. So you handle whatever it is they need. If I had a doctor who wanted to build a building, I would handle everything that was related to his building a building or financing his practice. And then small businesses also. I started off doing small businesses. Most people who lend money at a bank start off lending money and learning how to lend money to small businesses. So I've run the complete gambit throughout the years where I was lending money on the side. I saw that our community, particularly the Black community, did not have access to the information that I had from being inside the bank. I knew that my family didn't, my parents didn't. So on the side, I created workshops on my own related to information that I saw was needed in the community by people coming into the bank, being denied services, being denied even being able to open up an account because of the way that they handled their credit. So I created my own classes, and for the past 30, 35 years, I conducted them at churches, organizations, community centers, for employers, for employees, for anybody who would listen. And just before COVID, the bank came to me, TowneBank came to me and said that we know that you do all of these classes on the side, workshops on the side. So now we would like for you to do that for the bank and teach the other bankers how to go out into the community and develop business and educate the community. So since 2019, I have taken my, what I call my side hustle, and it has become my full-time job. And so now I have using basically the same information that I've been using for the past 30 some years. I'm using that now, going out into the community, talking to people. Last year, I reached about 3,000 people. And the year before, when everything was COVID, it was more like 7,000 people.
Hmm. You know, and that is great, and I think we need that more, especially in our communities. But I believe that, and I don't know if you'd agree with me, but there is a basic mistrust of banks within our communities, and even then, we keep a lot of money put in what we call the old passbook savings, rather than what I call investing in mutual funds or any kind of investment uh, vehicles. Am I hitting that about right? For
You are. There's definitely the distrust because people tend to do business with people who look like them. And when you walk into the bank, you sometimes you don't see somebody who looks like you. And if you do see someone who looks like you, that it might be the teller. And the teller is a position that does transactional business. So you're not really doing banking. You're making your deposits, you're doing whatever it is that you do with the teller, and then the teller moves on to the next person. If you are a business, and I do talk to a lot of small businesses, there's an organization called Black Brand, which is the Black Chamber. I work a lot with them, and they take businesses through what it takes to become successful. And they offer 12-week free classes to businesses that qualify. You have to apply for these positions to be in this 12-week course. And I usually teach several of those courses. And one of them is what happens when you come into the bank to request a loan or to request services. And that has been really popular. Sometimes we're butting heads because they're telling me their experiences and they sweat even walking into the bank. And they've had an account there for years, and they walk in to do business, and nobody knows who they are. And if you have just used a drive-through or direct deposit throughout all of the years, they don't know who you are. So I always recommend that every once in a while, for a location at a bank branch that you use quite often, every once in a while, get out of your car, go into the bank and do a transaction, even if it's getting a roll of quarters. Nobody uses change anymore, but just go into the bank. And if nobody looks up, nobody pays you any attention, say good morning in a very loud voice. And I assure you, everybody will look up and they will see you. So you do that every once in a while. Talk to the people sitting on the desk, introduce yourself to the branch manager, because the branch manager has the most power in the branches. The branch managers can usually have lending authority up to about $500,000. So most small businesses don't really need that. So developing a relationship with the branch manager, you then have an advocate who is going to go to credit committee or whoever is needed to look at your situation to make sure that you have what you need account wise and loan wise.
You hit a sore subject for a lot of people: credit and credit scores. And can you explain the credit, what's a good credit score, what's a bad credit score, and how you can fix those credit scores?
Okay, a credit scores in generally range from 300 to 850. And I've only seen maybe one or two 850s in my entire career. Most people range in the 700 and even the sixes. When you get below 628, because I believe you need at least 628 to get a mortgage. And it depends on the investor for the mortgage. You can do business with 628 and above. But 628 is probably the minimum score that somebody will use so that you will get a fair loan rate. Once you start getting into rates that are like 500, 400, it's rare that anybody will lend you any money. You have a lot of late payments, and all the credit report is determining how you pay your bills on time, and that's it. So if your scores are low, that means you do not pay your bills on time, and that's basically it. And your credit report is a summary of your paying your bills on time. It's actually like your financial resume, and the score is just a rating that's used to determine how you qualify for a loan, mortgage premiums, more insurance premiums, mortgages. All of that are determined by that score, and that score is determined on how you pay your bills and whether you pay them on time. I have had individuals with $1 million a year in income and a credit score of 400 and something. And in order for them to even get a loan, they will have to have a higher interest rate, even at $1 million a year, or even get somebody else to sign on something until their credit score goes up. Their credit score will go up after a couple of months once they start paying their bills on time. And for somebody with $1 million a year to have a 400 and some credit score, that means they probably have a mortgage. And when you're late on a mortgage payment, your score drops tremendously right away when you're 30 days late, more so than if you're late on a credit card. So anything that is secured by real estate and you're late on it, your score will drop. It can drop a couple 100 points, and you don't want that to happen.
Yeah. You know,
And it may
have rental
seem
property.
unfair, but
And
say that again. Excuse me. I
no,
said
go
it may
ahead.
seem
Yeah, I have rental property.
Mm-hmm.
It may
Okay.
seem unfair.
But
You
that's
go ahead and
looked at a
finish. Go
little
ahead
bit.
and finish.
That's looked at a little bit different. That's not generally on your credit report unless you have it in your personal name. If you have it in a business name, then there's a business, something for the business that is used completely separate.
Yeah. You know, I have a rental property, and anytime it's time, you know, I put it up on the market and people come in, they want to rent. And then the first thing they do, they ask you, the applicants ask it, I need to tell you that I got jacked up credit for some reason, you know, gone to a divorce, or they got school loans, or they have something going on. But there's always something that's saying, can you give me a break? And when you pull those scores, I mean, they're in the tube, in the toilet, or whatever. And then, so what should I tell these folks?
Well, if they're telling you that, you know, because they've got student loans, you can have, I have people that have student loans that are over $500,000 and their credit is fine. As long as those payments are current, your credit is going to be fine. But the way that your credit is, like they say, jacked up is because they do not pay their bills on time, or they don't pay them at all. If you have things that have been completely charged off because you didn't make any payments, and after 60 to 90 days, your credit card or any other entity, they have an obligation to charge that off, and that's on your credit report. Or if you have filed bankruptcy, that is all going to be on your credit report. And all of that keeps your scores down. So people who say that they have jacked up credit, it's because they have not handled their personal finances accurately, which means paying their bills on time, and not having their credit or any entity charged off, because that charge off is going to stay on there. The bankruptcy is going to stay on there. Anytime you pull a credit report, it's going to stay on there. Fortunately, a few years ago, they changed it so that, for instance, if you owe a furniture company something, after 7 years, that is going to drop off of your credit and your score will increase by that time. Even if you haven't paid them, if you have gone 7 years without paying them and it's a charge off on your credit report, that's going to drop off. If you have filed bankruptcy, that will stay on the credit report. If you owe the IRS, that will stay on the credit report. But typically for your revolving credit, installment loans like a car loan or something, if you have not made a payment on those within that 7 years, it will drop off of your credit report. And now a lot of people will get something, they know that they owe something from way back when. You may not even owe it. I received a call one time and they said, you owe us from American Express, and it was from 1990. I said, are you kidding me? So what these companies have done is sold their past due receivables to an entity for a few pennies on the dollar, and that entity attempts to collect that money. And if they collect that money, then that's how they make money. That's their own business. So if you know that you had something from 1990 or even 2000, anything that's over 7 years old, and somebody comes to you to say, well, we'll negotiate with you, and all you have to do, we'll go from $500, you know, to $200 and some dollars, and all you have to do is just start paying on the $200. Don't do that, because that account is actually off of your credit report. This is a company that has bought the receivables, and once you make a payment, you have reactivated that file. So you've got another 7 years to keep that on your credit report. So just tell them not to call you anymore. and hang up the phone.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Colonel, I think she just brought up a point that I was going to bring, and because it's kind of intimidating after 7 years, you get those calls, and sometimes they have a real official sounding, threatening male voice on there, especially they leave a message. And, I mean, if you don't know about the 7 year rule, you reactivate that. Now, the 7 year rule, if you don't reactivate it, how does that affect your credit? I mean, it drops off
It
the
is.
credit as far. I
It's
mean,
off
does
of
it
your
affect
credit.
the numbers?
It's off of your credit anyway. That's not on your credit report. With the 7 year rule, they're calling you about something that is not even on your credit report. But if you make a payment, that will be on your credit report. It actually reactivates that file.
But does it affect your numbers? Say like you at 600 or something like that. Once it drops off, does it affect it in a positive way,
No.
or it just stays the same?
Well, in a positive way, it does, because it's not on your credit, and you can start to build it from there. That has no bearing on your score. It's gone from your credit report.
Okay.
We're talking about the short term, long term, and I guess I would say revolving credit is a short to medium term problem with society. But I also look at once at these pay stubs for folks that were trying to get credit for my businesses, and I look at not a lot of, especially young folks, aren't saving for retirement. I mean, they have no deductions for retirement. And so what do you say to those folks?
Let me tell you, they don't have any reductions for retirement. Let me give you some statistics here. 33% of all Americans have not saved 1 penny for retirement. And these are people who are over 50, and they have not saved any money for retirement. And there are people who, on Social Security, there are apparently 50,000 people, and they have it tagged down to 50,000 people whose Social Security checks are being debited for student loans that they had way back when. Those are federal student loans. When you owe the federal government and you have a federal payment, then money seems to come out. So these things can follow you a long time. And now that we're getting older, and who knew it would happen, but suddenly here we are. And that's what the kids need to know. Before you know it, it's going to be upon you. But they do not save, and they do not know how to save. So when I talk to them, I tell them, from every paycheck you get, and my father taught me this when I was 18, whatever paycheck you get, take out at least $5 if you can, or $1 for yourself. Have an account that you are going to put money in, and always make sure that that money comes out. It doesn't seem like a lot at first, but it adds up over time. But I find that younger people want, and I don't know if we were the same, probably, they want everything now, so that putting in $5, $10 and all of this, so that at the end of the year, you may have $500, doesn't seem like a lot to them, but it does add up. You have got to start somewhere. You don't start off where Shaq and those folks start off. That's where they see themselves. And even talking to people who are living in homes where they're paying now, up to $2,000 a month in rent, and they could probably buy a home and pay a lot less than that in a mortgage. And when I talk to them, we talk to them about mortgages, and I bring in professionals to do that, our mortgage people to do that. They say, well, I don't want to live here. I want to live at the ocean front. Well, maybe you're not going to be able to live at the ocean front right now. We all want to live at the ocean front, but there are folks already there and they're not moving. So it takes a certain dollar amount to live at the ocean front. But just managing your money basically has to start somewhere. And they don't want to start anywhere. You get that paycheck, money should go right away to something in your 401k, if you have a 401k, or put money in an IRA, but nobody's educating people on that anymore. Well, actually, they never really did. If your family doesn't do it, the schools are starting to do it, but they're really, really late on it. And it's just a problem. 44% of all Americans, which if you consider we have 350 million people in the country, 44% of all Americans do not have cash on hand to cover a $400 emergency. That's a lot of people. And that is really not that much money. I mean, some people are one dead battery from being able to go to work and earn a living. And learning how to handle your money is a big deal. When you have mismanaged a bank checking account, if you open up a checking account, you're 18, 19 years old, and you're constantly overdrawing that account and they have to charge it off, you will not be able to open up a bank account anywhere because you go into this registry. And if you open up an account at TowneBank and you have really misused your account over at Bank of America, even after a couple of days, we might close out your account and send you your money back if that doesn't register right away. And you'll have to make good on that account at Bank of America before you can bank anywhere else. And there are about, and I have all these statistics here, there are about 9 million people in the country who are unbankable. That means they cannot open up a checking account. So they're the ones who are subject to all kinds of fraud and having to pay money orders for basic bills. You go to 7-Eleven and you're behind somebody who is ordering money orders to pay their basic bills. If you have a checking account, at the most, that check that you write, if you don't keep a decent balance, is going to be 25 cents. The money order is going to be much more than that. And plus they have to walk around with this cash, and that is not good either. So it's a problem, and sometimes people will listen and sometimes they don't. So sometimes I go head to head with a lot of people who say, well, I'm not like you, you don't know what it is, and blah, blah, blah. I didn't start off here. And people need to know you don't just start off here. I was a student and I knew how to stretch my money till I got the next chunk of money in. I knew exactly how much to pay before something would get cut off. And most of us know that. And those are things that you have to learn. And I'm just trying to share that information with them, but sometimes they listen and sometimes they don't, but I continue to do that anyway. And 38% of American households have credit card debt, averaging more than 16,000. Pardon me?
No, go ahead. Finish.
Did you say something?
No, you can go ahead.
16,000.
38% of American households have credit card debt averaging more than $16,000, and they're paying an interest rate of more than 17% on that money, and making the minimum payment. It can take you 14 years to pay off $1,000, making the minimum payment at that kind of rate.
So you suggest for those credit cards. So your suggestion for those individuals who are making the minimum payment on those credit cards, what do you suggest that they pay in order to get rid of that debt as quickly as they can?
As quickly as they can, they should pay definitely more than the minimum. And you'll be surprised how if for instance, if they ask for $10 a month and they're just paying $10, it whittles a little bit away of the principal. But if you can pay $100, you'll be surprised how much that goes down right away, and your interest rate can improve, because as you start to pay it and pay it off and maybe even get it to a zero balance and keep it there, the credit card company will lower your rate if you ask them. Once you start paying your bills on time, it puts you in a different category. But paying the minimum does not delete or get rid of that balance. But what it does do, if you are paying the minimum, that means that you are current, so you probably have good credit. So if you pay the minimum, and you should pay at least the minimum within that period of time, your credit will remain good, but you're just making the minimum payments. And sometimes if you pay off the entire balance at once, your credit score drops right away, but it's only temporary. For some reason it drops, but it goes right back up in a very short period of time once you have paid off something. And they don't want you to cancel credit cards that you've had for a long time, because that's a history. So you're showing that you have had credit for a long time with your older credit cards. But everybody should have at least one MasterCard or one Visa, because you do need a credit card to make reservations. You need a credit card to check into a hotel, to rent a car. And in an emergency, you will need something like that, but just keep it at a minimum. But once you start paying more than the minimum, it does start to whittle it away. It doesn't happen right away.
Yvonne, what would you
Say that
tell?
again.
What would you tell to a couple or a person that has become a slave to a predatory loan operation? How would you tell them first to get from under that, and in the future to avoid that? You know, how to set themselves, because it's one on every corner, and it's a reason for that, because so many people are using them
I missed the
because
first
of the
part of that.
situations they get
The
in.
first part of that, the first part of what you said, I missed it. It did not come through. I could not hear
So
you.
I was saying, what would you say to uh, a couple or a person that has become a slave to a predatory loan operation, and how would they get from under it and avoid falling into that trap in the future?
They need to get from under it, start paying it off, and don't borrow from them. And that's what most people do. They start to pay it off, and then something else comes up, so then they add to it, so it continues to go up, and it seems like it takes forever. You can get out of those, but once it gets up into the thousands, it's harder to do that. And then even if you file bankruptcy to come from under those, then you have another problem, because then you cannot get even the mainstream credit because you've got that bankruptcy. And a lot of those have become illegal. So you really have to look and see the legitimacy of the business. They may take your car title. I mean, people are always after your money. And when you don't have a lot of money, you will always be in that situation if you continue to fall for the same things. So the best thing is, if you want it, but you cannot afford it, you need to save your money until you can afford it. And the I need everything now mentality, that's what gets people in trouble. And there's a lot of that. Everybody wants, the big cars, the big this. And I always tell the story that I read recently, Jeff Bezos, who owns Amazon, who has all the money in the world, he had an $8 billion net worth, and he was still driving his Honda Civic.
That's why he has
$8 billion is a nice little net worth. And a Honda Civic is a very good car. But no, that's exactly why he has $8 billion. And Bill Gates did the same thing. They said that he had the raggediest car sitting out there at his whole company. I mean, because you just need transportation. He's got other cars too, but still, you've got that car.
Yvonne, what do you say to young people who are no longer using checking accounts, but they're using Zelle and Cash App and all of these other devices in order to make payments? Or what advice would you have for them? I think she's frozen.
They do that. They do. The financial institutions actually support a couple of them now, so that they can still have a bank account, but they do not write checks. And actually, for people who do still write checks, if you order checks, they don't send you as many checks as they used to. And they don't send you a checkbook anymore. You have to ask for that. You also have to ask for a check registry to keep tabs on your checks. They don't send you any of that anymore because people are not using checks. And online banking is very popular because it's very safe. And now with the problem with fraud, I do one workshop. I started doing one for seniors on fraud, and dumpster diving and mailbox fraud is really, really big. So when you put money or you put a check in the mail, you need to be very careful where that mailbox is. Even the ones that are sitting in front of the post office are now, some of them are taped up. So you have to go into the post office to actually mail something. If you can avoid writing a check for any bills or for anything, you probably should. I still write a few checks for certain things, but there are other venues to do that. But no young people that I know of know how to write checks. When you open a bank account, when we opened a bank account, we got that first block of starter checks. They don't even give those out anymore. They get a debit card, and from that debit card, they start immediately being able to access their account.
You know, you were talking earlier about paying off a credit card, and it reminds me of the same technique of paying off that credit card. It's the same technique that I think that a lot of people need to look at for that 30-year mortgage that they have. Putting a little bit money on that. Can you explain how that, if you look at it in the amortization schedule, how that extra $100, and I'll use that as a metaphor, will expedite to turn in, say, $100, $150 could turn that a 30-year mortgage into a 22-year mortgage?
It does, by making that extra payment to principal. Because if you look at your mortgage payment, especially in the beginning, most of the money that you're paying is going towards the interest. So you make that payment, but then if you pay a little bit extra towards that principal, eventually the principal is what goes down. That's what you want to be reduced. So a 30-year mortgage can actually be, paid off in 20 years. And believe it or not, by breaking that payment up into 2 payments, so if you are paying $1,000 on the first and $1,000 on the 15th, for some reason that actually pays your loan off quicker also. But you have to have a special arrangement with the mortgage company to officially make to break your payment up into 2 payments like that. They may require you to do something extra if you're making an extra payment, but typically they don't. But if you're breaking it up so that you're making 2 payments a month instead of 1 payment a month, that's a special arrangement with the mortgage company. And you're paying the exact amount, your $2,000 a month mortgage, but paying $1,000 on the first and $1,000 on the 15th pays it off quicker than you're paying $2,000 on the first. And that's just how the money works.
Wow. Interesting there.
Yes. Yeah. And I love that piece. And I think you don't really have to have that special relationship, especially if you're caught up. So if you did that and say in January, I did my regular 2,000, and in February I had a 2,000, I got up there, and then I started to do that half month thing. It would you still really didn't need to have a really official payment plan or arrangement with them, because what happens is you're making an extra payment over a year towards that big bill that you have. And so that's one technique to do it. But yeah, go ahead.
If on a regular basis you set it up, yes, you can do it on your own, but they may reach out to you and say, we have noticed the pattern that you're doing, blah, blah, blah. And so, but I recommend leaving it with the 30-year amortization and paying more when you can, because if such as COVID, when things are tight, so if you set it up officially so that you're making the
Yeah, the other thing too is
breaking up a little bit.
Yeah, you broke up, but and I believe that the other thing too is if you get bonuses or anything like that in a little piece of your tax refund at the end of the year, break off some of it to your mortgage and pay some of the
break
principal.
off some of it into your mortgage. Yes. Break off some of it into your mortgage and also into your savings. You out of every bit of money that you get, always put some into saving out of every bonus. And then you still have to buy a little something for yourself every once in a while, because if you're just working just to pay bills and to pay bills for everybody else in the household, you can get some feelings behind that. So every once in a while, buy yourself something, a new lipstick, a nail polish or something, something for yourself that makes you feel good. Or take everybody out to dinner, taking everyone out to dinner. Whether you do that or don't, you're not going to become a millionaire by that, but by sitting there enjoying something a little bit different, makes a difference. And we live right here by the beach. Check into one of the hotels at the beach every once in a while, and just be a tourist for the weekend or something. And I understand that some of the hotels, if you live here and you check into the hotel, they will actually give you a discount because you live here.
Mhm.
Yes.
And you can take
I
your
didn't know.
own little vacation once everybody
Mhm.
leaves for the summer.
You mentioned earlier about the $400. What would be the amount of savings for a typical family to have in what we call emergency fund?
It changed during COVID. It used to be you should have like 6 months worth of your expenses saved. And now it's more like 9 months to a year worth of your expenses. And you should do a monthly budget worksheet. And I can send that to Mr. Overton. I have his email address. And it's a basic monthly budget sheet. And I have one that is blank and one that is filled out by hand. And everybody in the household should fill out that budget sheet. In your mind, you know how much money you have to pay when you get your check. I've got to pay this, I've got to pay that. But you should write down everything that you have to pay. When you write it down, it looks different. And you're going to be very disappointed in yourself when you see how much money you waste by when you write it down and look at it. And for everyone in the family, for 1 or 2 weeks in a row, and when I'm doing something like at a church, you give everybody like one of these little spiral notebooks that are, maybe cost like $1 and something. You can pick them up at Walmart or the dollar store. And for a week, write down every dime that you spend. And you will be amazed at how much money you waste. When I do that with college students, and then we go back the next week for their part 2 of their budgeting class, all of them are surprised at how much money they spend on food when they have access to food. And they spend a lot of money on food. And now it's DoorDash and all of that. Write down every dime that you spend on a weekly basis and see what you have, see what you come up with. You'll be very upset with yourself.
So Yvonne, you said you sent these sheets to James, huh?
I'm
You
going to
sent the
send it.
sheets
I'll
to-
send them to him after this. Yes. It's
Very
called a
good.
monthly budget worksheet. And I'll
Okay.
also send the one that I have filled out by hand. And the one filled out by hand, you'll see at the top, it shows income. And the one that's filled out by hand shows like take home for somebody making $40,000 a year for the month. And then all of those categories on there, you can make them your own categories, but I have them broken up into, your mortgage or your utilities, car payments, all of that. All of that, once you get down to the bottom line, that's how much money you have left for the month. And hopefully it's a positive number and you can decide to save some of that or do something else with it, put it towards one of the credit cards. And actually one of the categories on that budget sheet is savings and your retirement. So you should always have something that you're saving. And in the household, if you have teenagers or kids or, and they think that money just comes from you, well, then you may have to have them complete one so that they will understand. In our households growing up and typically in Black households, the parents don't talk about money with the kids. You just know we don't have money for that.
Mhm.
And that's what we're told. We don't have money for that, but you don't know why you don't have money for that. So if you fill out one of these, then you'll see, oh, mom's been paying this or that. But if you don't tell kids, they don't know. And I always tell the story of my own situation. I'm at home and I'm a teenager and we're sitting around and I told my dad, I said, I have to have these jeans. Everybody has these jeans. I have to have these jeans. And I'm about 17 or 18 years old. And he looked at me and he said, have you ever thought about getting a job? And I looked at him. I looked at him. I said, no, the thought never occurred to me to get a job. Even though I had friends who were working, I was like, well, that's them. But it just didn't register. And sometimes with teenagers, things don't register the same. You really have to tell them. And from that point on, I said, maybe I'll get a job. And I got a job and I've been working ever since. But until he said that, I just figured I would just keep asking him for money.
Mhm.
Yeah, Yvonne, I wanted to, and you kind of
So
touched
you
on it
really
when
do
you
have
mentioned
to start educating your kids
must be a
very,
delay.
very, very early.
Yeah.
Okay. Yvonne, I wanted to touch
And then
on,
when they start,
I think it's a delay. Can you hear me?
if there is there's a delay. Mhm.
Yeah, okay. I think you touched on this earlier when you talked about people might want to automatically go down and live at the beach or buy the most expensive car. And when I was a realtor, I worked with a lot of first-time home buyers, and
Yeah, I think
it
they're
was,
frozen. I can hear you. I can hear you. Mhm.
oh, okay. Uh, and I worked with a lot of first-time home buyers, and it made sense for the realtors to pre-qualify them before we got them in the car. And a lot of those young people might have pre-qualified for maybe. Uh-oh,
We lost her.
Yeah.
she's with the. Uh-oh, we lost her. We'll see if she comes back. Good morning, Leah.
Good morning. How you doing?
All right.
Morning, Colonel.
Good morning.
Okay, looks like, let me see if I can get her
Just
back.
coming back.
Hello, are you back?
Okay, you're back. Okay, lost you there for a minute, and I'll
Yeah,
get to it real quick.
it completely logged out.
Yeah, I'll get to it real quick. The first-time first-time home buyers that might qualify for, say, $100,000 or $200,000, but they don't necessarily have to go for that whole loan because if they do, because they qualified, they have your worksheet, and they go down the list and find out, all these things that they owe other than the mortgage. So it's not always wise to go for the top amount that you qualify. Is that something that you advise, doing your presentations if you have some first time home buyers in there?
Yeah, and I usually bring a mortgage expert in because there's so many different mortgage products. And what they do is they pre-qualify you for a house. Some people will find the house that they want first, and then they can't afford it once the finances come into the picture. So the best thing to do is to get pre-qualified, and you get pre-qualified through a mortgage company that is associated with a financial institution. TowneBank has its own TowneBank mortgage. And for you to get pre-qualified, it does not cost you anything. So when somebody says we can pre-qualify you for this amount of money or that amount of money, it should not cost you anything to pre-qualify you for a mortgage. And then based on what they pre-qualify you for, you look at something at that range or below your means so that you will have the cash flow to live. And you don't want to make every single dime that you spend go into your mortgage. You want to be able to live too.
Mhm.
So
Those
living
emergency.
below your means is not a bad thing. And
I have a
throughout our
question.
lives, we have seen like athletes who become extremely poor. I mean, you can go online and see a whole list of ones who have lost everything. And entertainers also. There's no real sane reason for that to happen.
Right.
Unless you have some kind of problem. A substance abuse problem in some instances cause people to do things, but otherwise, you cannot drive 12 cars. Okay. You can drive one car. Maybe if you have two cars, one for fun and one for work, that might be fine. But you cannot drive 12 cars. Why do you need 12 cars? You've got to start them up. You've got to keep the maintenance on them. You've got to do all of that. It doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
But people want and want and want, and things make people feel better. And that's another problem altogether. It has not a lot to do with money, but they think that things make them, look better. And for instance, like designer purses, I might buy a purse from Cole Haan, but it's on sale. I go straight to the sale page and I start buying from that, there's no need for me to have a $5,000 purse. It serves the same purpose as a good $100 on sale purse that was formerly $500. And that's when I'm talking to young people about even buying clothes, I'm like, rarely pay full price for anything. And I learned this from my clients who have everything. They will not pay full price for things, and everything is on sale, and they're always looking for a bargain. And, you know, only shopping at Harris Teeter on Thursday when you get buy one, get one free. I have learned all of that, and that's exactly what I do also. There is no need to pay full price for things, and you don't need the most expensive thing. If you get that one house in your neighborhood where you can get a house for $140,000, $150,000, there are mechanisms with the city and with mortgage companies to help you build onto that house, to fix that house up and to refinance it so that you've got a very decent property that you can live in, and eventually you can move out of, you can sell it, you can rent it. And when you start renting it, you've already started to build your own personal assets because you've got a piece of investment property. So once you start with a piece of investment property, you're on your way. You can get another piece of investment property, and you can rent it out. If you get anything near any of these universities, you will always have a tenant because the students want to live off campus and they will rent from you. So you've already started your own business by buying that home that's $140,000, $150,000, and even less. A lot of the cities have where you can, you know, buy all of the, you can buy these for $1. Of course, they're not livable. You can't live in them at that point, but you can get enough money to make it livable and then take out a mortgage on that house based on the improvements that you make. So there are a lot of things that you can do when you to get a piece of property and to own a piece of property and to try to start building up your assets. And it's never too early and it's never too late to start doing that. And if you look around the city, like in Norfolk, I mean, neighborhoods have changed completely, and where we had the chance to buy those homes for $60,000, $70,000, those homes are now worth $300,000 or $400,000, especially if you live near water. You know, those homes are going to be very expensive, and those are going to be great investments if you can get them early.
Yvonne, the Colonel has a question, I believe.
Yes.
Yes, I'm having trouble hearing you guys now.
Yes. So you talked about we've sort of made this age thing, and so we've transitioned onto that. So
I cannot hear you. Something happened when I logged out.
Okay. So can you hear me now?
It's a little bit better.
Okay. So as we've gone through life, and then you say you know, you raise your kids and everything else, and then you become in what I call the elderly or aged, and then people, when you see these commercials with Tom Selleck and it's talking about these reverse mortgages, could you explain the pros and cons of reverse mortgages and the effects of that institutional or generational wealth on the other end if you take one of those out?
Well, I'm not an expert on reverse mortgages. We actually have one person in our mortgage group whose specialty is reverse mortgages. And a reverse mortgage is when your house is paid off, then you can actually borrow money to live on based on the equity in your house if you're a certain age. And then once you pass away, it pays off that debt, but you can lose the house too. There are so many problems with reverse mortgages. Some of the larger banks don't even offer them anymore. And so you would have to go to somebody like Tom Selleck's group that he does. I've seen those commercials. And you should always be just very leery of those. Go to a financial institution, like even at TowneBank Mortgage, and say you're interested in a reverse mortgage. The mortgage person will refer you to the expert, and they will make a calculation on whether or not you should or should not get a reverse mortgage. It doesn't lend you the full amount of your the value of your home, but it takes out money, let's say maybe 70% of the equity, and gives it to you to live off of. But if you can afford to live without getting that reverse mortgage, that's usually a good thing. A lot of the people that I have seen who get a reverse mortgage, I have had them come into the bank and they're afraid because they have this money, and they said their kids know they have this money, and they know that the money is going to be gone because the kids are like, mom has a couple $100,000 and I need. And when you get older, I mean, they don't have the, let's see, what is it? To be able to stand up to their kids, they can badger them into giving them what they would not normally have given them when they were younger. And a lot of people take advantage of their parents that way, and a lot of people in our community have been taken advantage of by their children that way. So reverse mortgages are not something that I would talk about, but you get an expert, and if it fits for you, then they would recommend it. But they are really, really cautious about issuing reverse mortgages these days. And like I said, some banks have stopped doing them 100%.
Yeah. I think you're correct on that as far as the it expedites the potential of losing the house after the parent's death. And because that mortgage is payable on death after a certain amount of time. And then most of the kids have not prepared to pay that more, to absorb that amount to keep the house. And so the bank basically is going to take that house, and that piece of, the discussion of intergenerational wealth ends with on death. And so that's a big subject for
our individual wealth is something that we have to protect. And
yes.
I can see why our parents didn't want to tell us things, but what they need to start telling us is how we can build those things, how you can start to build your own assets. And, there are three typical types of assets: physical assets, financial assets, productive assets, like when you have your own business. And the value is determined by the type of asset that you have. But we need to teach our kids these things. And it doesn't have to be like with the house. It can be something that they own, that they appreciate, that they think is very valuable, and how they would feel if that thing was taken away from them. Probably their phone or something like that, taken away from them, so that they will really understand what it means. This is an asset for you right now. You don't want to lose this. What do you need to do to protect this financially?
Yes.
And some basic courses are out there. You can even go on the internet and find some basic things that are that you can use to teach children. They have all kinds of programs and booklets that you can use to really start to get kids to understand money. In April, it's usually Financial Literacy Month, and in banking, we send our younger bankers. They go into the schools and they have all kinds of tools to teach people and to teach the kids how to manage their money and to separate their wants from their needs. And that's something that we teach even in colleges: the wants from the needs, the wants from the needs. And they need to be able to distinguish their wants from their needs.
Yes.
Yvonne, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Yvonne?
And we've got to start pushing that, and we've got to learn that.
Can you hear me,
Barely.
Yvonne?
All of you are like really, really low now.
Okay,
Yes.
I'll try to get real close to, but I want, you've been there a while, but you weren't there in the beginning of TowneBank. And when TowneBank started in the city of Portsmouth, their niche was being a community bank, where you could come in there and it was friendly. Now y'all have branched off in North Carolina, Richmond, and still kind of regional compared to the big Wells Fargo and Bank of America. Uh-oh.
Oops.
I think it may be her internet setting.
Yeah,
May not be
yeah.
strong.
Well, she's on her phone
Okay.
because her laptop, we got no sound when she first came on.
Okay.
So we'll start wrapping it up.
Yeah.
If any Colonel, you have any comments, or Leah, if you have any comments?
I'll start off first. I think this is financial literacy is a topic that we actually, especially Black families, but all families need to have a discussion, and also have to have something to work towards. Because,
Okay, I'm sorry I lost you again.
yes, but now that we're getting ready to come to the end, but I did have one other question. And because you talked about we sort
And I
of brushed
missed his
over.
question. I'm sorry about that, because
Yes. Yeah, we talked about
and I can
retirement
barely
plans.
hear you now.
Yes,
Yeah, I
retirement
can
plans.
barely hear you.
Yes, retirement plans by age.
Yes.
What is the typical amount that somebody should have in a retirement plan by, and you can group it off by 10 years.
I cannot hear you. I can't hear you.
We need to.
Yes.
Okay,
Go
we're
ahead.
probably going to have to close it out, Yvonne, because we haven't hearing problems, and it's close to the hour anyway. But if you can hear me now, we appreciate you coming on, and hopefully we can come back and we can have better sound, because I really want to know if TowneBank still has that community feel that they started
Oh,
out with,
it
as opposed
does.
to
It
the
does.
big
And
bank.
we were cut off at that point, but yes, it does. Even though now it's a $17 billion bank. So our regulations, so when you become after a certain point in $1 billion, then the regulators are stricter on you. So there are more things that you have to do as a $17 billion bank than you did as a $1 to $2 billion bank. So while we're under more strict regulations, we still do have that community feel. We still do give to the community. We're now in the Charlotte region in North Carolina. We now have, instead of just the locations here, we have 50 locations, more than 50 locations, and just merged with a bank in Richmond to give us 9 more locations outside of the Richmond area. So we are growing, but in each one of those communities, we're trying to do what we did originally here at TowneBank. TowneBank was already 5 or 6 years old when I joined it. I joined in 2005. And I was at another bank at that time.
Yeah. Okay, Colonel, I didn't know if you wanted to slip that last question you had in, or we can sign off and take it up next time.
I think I'll try to slip that in. Retirement accounts, what should I have by age or age grouping in a retirement account as I get closer to retirement?
And we have retirement experts for that. And you probably want to talk to an investment expert, because it's going to surround your investments. For my 401k plan that I have through my employer, when I log on, it gives you what I should have at what age and how to start saving for that. So if you have any of those that you can log into, they tell you on there what you should have at what age, how short you're going to become, how much over you will have on a monthly basis. But they have those mechanisms and those little calculators, retirement calculators, which can kind of give you an estimate. So if you have no idea, it'll at least give you an estimate. You have to plug in some information. You don't have to put in your social or anything like that. Just put in information, and it can give you an idea of what you should probably have. But start off with your expenses. I mean, there are probably a lot of things like streaming services. I mean, how many streaming services do you have that you don't need? I mean, you're paying for every month. So just little things like that, that you should pay attention to, and to keep more retirement money, especially when you retire. There are certain things that you really don't need anymore.
Yes.
Okay, before we go, and you do presentations and on financial literacy, so tell people how they can get in touch with you. And it could be all groups. It could be the police department in the 7 cities. It could be all different kind of groups, church groups, but tell people how to get in touch with you if they want a
They can call
presentation
me
from
at
you.
my office at 757-628-6361. And for groups, I can put together a financial workshop for your group. I like to have a minimum of 25 to 30 people in there, but for the police departments, for the new recruits coming in, I've put together a team and we go in for an hour and a half and talk to the new recruits as one of their classes, basic financial literacy, investment, and mortgage, because sometimes there are special products that are just unique to law enforcement and first responders. Last year, there was a grant that first responders and police officers could get to buy a house, $15,000 at the closing table that they did not have to repay. $15,000 can put you in another house. So we talk about benefits like that for them. So I've done 6 of them for 6 classes of recruits for the Norfolk Police Department. So any of the other departments, if they want that for their existing officers or for any of the recruits, I'll be happy to put those together. For employers who have a lot of employees, especially if you've got drivers like from Amazon are making more money than they've ever made in their whole lives. So their bosses want them to learn how to manage their money. So we go in and put something basic in for employers, for their employees also. It's looked at as a benefit. When your employees can save money, then you've got a happy employee. And you don't know people's situations. One employer is a huge employer, and they're one person that manages a large group of employees was living in her car, and they had no idea that she was living in her car.
Wow.
So people need to learn how to manage their money. So if they come into a situation, hers may have been domestic, but if she put away some money for herself from every single paycheck, she probably would not have found herself in her car. She would have had access to money to at least get something on a temporary basis for herself. And so I try to tailor the workshops for the group. If it's young men, it's going to be a little bit of a different tone than young women. College students, high school students, people who are retiring, all of them there's a little bit of a change to each one of them to fit the audience.
Okay, well, thanks again. Appreciate it. And if you get a chance, go on my
just give me a
Facebook
call
page.
and we can schedule something. Pardon me?
I was going to say, if you get a chance, go on my Facebook page. A few people have some questions or comments that you might want to see. So,
She couldn't hear you, James.
oh,
Okay.
okay. I'll get in touch with you.
Can you email me the face?
Yes, I will. Yes, I will.
Please do. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Okay.
You have a good day.
Thank you, Yvonne.
Right.
Thank you so very much
Bye-bye.
for the information. It's valuable. Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you for
See you
having
next
me
time.
anytime.
Bye.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.